Okay, so what we're going to talk about today is digitizing subject matter expertise. And what I mean by that is the discovery, capture, communication, and delivery of expertise and knowledge in a digital format. And what we really need to start with today is really understanding a couple market drivers that are really impacting how people think through expertise and knowledge transfer. The first one is, of course, digital transformation. It's here to stay, and it's just growing, and it is a bit of an unstoppable force. Now we're seeing it occur in differences of maturity across different markets and industries, but it's definitely taking hold. People are really tapping into data, and they're using it to separate themselves competitively. They're doing that by disrupting traditional ways of doing business. And when they do that, they wall off the traditional approach to markets and the companies that serve those markets. They're more efficient in their operations. They can innovate using new business models and solutions. And these digital enterprises and digital economies will really come to dominate markets much faster than I think we anticipate. So there's also the other factor, which is the immovable object, at least until our gray hairs all go off to the manufacturing plant in the sky. That is the aging workforce. And if you think about it, you've got 10,000, just in the US alone, 10,000 baby boomers retiring daily, creating and manufacturing the need for 2.7 million jobs to be filled, yet 70% of senior executives, C-suite executives, feel in manufacturing that they don't have the workforce with the skill set, the technical skills, the computer skills necessary to fill those jobs, meaning that there's an anticipation of 2 million jobs unfilled by 2025. What I find really interesting about the intersection of these two dynamics is that you can harness one trend, digital transformation, to actually solve the problems that occur with the other trend of the aging workforce. When you digitize subject matter expertise, it gives you many, many more options in terms of how you can apply that expertise on a broad scale and a targeted scale. Let me give you a couple instances. In terms of operational complexity, so operating environments are just continuing to become more and more and more complex. So no one individual, no matter how experienced they are, can know everything that they have to know to do their job. When you digitize subject matter expertise, when you digitize knowledge and you deliver it to people, what you've done is you've enabled yourself options in terms of multiple layers of reinforcement to any individual. So it could be via just-in-time information tools. It could be via personalized training. It could be both, depending on what's most effective for that individual based on his or her own area of responsibility. You can attack tribal knowledge, so decisions and methods can be captured, stored, communicated, and improved upon using digital means. That takes the knowledge away from the individual or tribal mentality and makes it organizational. So that intellectual property resides where it should reside, with the organization itself. There's delivery. So when expertise is applied in a digital environment, you have options. You can deliver it via machine, via human, or both. You have that option. There's also consumption. To me, is quite fascinating when you look at digital transformation solutions and initiatives. UX, user experience, it's not a tag-along. It's a core part of what people believe is part of digital transformation. The ability for users to consume knowledge and expertise in a way that makes sense to them. And by doing that, you're really increasing adoption of digital approaches. There's awareness, so digital environments can reflect past, present, and future states, and that can be delivered to people within the context of what they're trying to do. And then also, to me, the most fascinating is the skills gaps. You can use digital approaches to knowledge and expertise to not just bridge some skills gaps, but eliminate them altogether. So you enable workers to do much more in terms of their craft skills capacity. You could, for example, take somebody who has 3 years of craft skills experience, enable them using digital means, deliver expertise to them in context when they need it, and they could effectively do the job of somebody who typically would require 10 years of experience to do that. That's what digital transformation means in terms of expertise and knowledge. So let me give you a couple examples of how that could be realized in an operational environment. So the first is looking at a control room. You could take artificial intelligence, and you can deliver via VR and AR sensing capabilities that extend that individual person's capabilities for performing their job. You get more input via drones, robots, smart machines that can reflect the entire operational environment no matter what state you need to look at it. You can also take a lot of data relative to any task in hand and apply analytics so that you have expert insight via those data sources such as the drones and the smart machines. My mouse is not good. And then also there's interfaces. So you can have emotional recognition software that you embed in interfaces for security or emergency situations. There's now, using things like semantic search and natural language processing, the ability to have humans and machines communicate in a much more natural way relative to how the human needs to interact with that expert knowledge base. And then, of course, there's the communication processing. So you can bring an expert via digital means into a virtual work environment with a person doing their job, thus extending your expertise across the organization in ways you couldn't. And it's really all about combining these things so that you can have somebody in the context of an operational environment, a control room, stay calm and make the right decisions. Another example is really look at gaps and skills and applying that to rework, field work, trying to lower the cost of it, eliminate rework, improve safety. Using traditional means, you had a certain number of options. You could update or consolidate your system. Let's say it's field work that you want to improve. You could implement some type of workflow initiative. You could increase your training budget, or you could try to hire better workers if you can find them. Now, the challenge with that approach is that they included some mix of cost, complexity, and time barriers. So it could be O&M costs, it could be capital costs, it could be a really complex IT endeavor that you're not resourced for, so that you have to go out and either bring those in-house or find somebody and pay them to do it. And then there's time to effectiveness. I think with traditional systems, we've all seen that it can sometimes take years before you get a return on that investment. So let's look at that same problem in the context of a digital transformation environment where expertise is delivered to an individual based on what they're doing. So let's augment the field crew instead. You could take predictive analytics and all of the data inputs relative to the problem being solved, run it through those analytics, and discover insights that you never could see before, so you can identify how the problem is best solved. You can then, using workflow automation, send those analytical insights into some type of recommendation engine so the person knows what to do and what not to do and when to do it. Then, of course, you could deliver that to somebody via natural language processing. And what's interesting there is the individual then can talk back and forth to the knowledge base. And as the data changes, the decisions change. And the recommendation engine is updated in real time. So you're always dynamically making the right decisions. And then you could deliver that knowledge to somebody using an AR application so that they could do the work, somebody could follow along, it could be captured in terms of the work done and the accuracy of that, which could then be reported out for compliance purposes, for example. So when you look at that approach and you contrast it to traditional means of improving a process, it's pretty stunning how you can just impact the problem at hand, lowering the cost of work and rework. But what to me is even more interesting is when you take that and you look at how it applies to more corporate approaches for KPIs and performance, and it's across the board. You can change your hiring practices. You can increase your time to productivity of people that have less craft skills. OEE is ensured. Rework is avoided. You can cut down on simulation and modeling spend because you're delivering information to people in a different way where it has more context. Risk mitigation, IT costs, capital investment, it goes on and on and on. So we're going to hear today a couple speakers talk about their approach to changing how they do something via digital transformation with an emphasis on expertise and the management of knowledge across the organization. As I mentioned, first we're going to hear from Marty Martin, and he's going to talk about the step change that Air Liquide is currently in, also the guiding principles around expertise and knowledge that drive that step change and support it, and to me the most fascinating thing, the two things that come out of it for him, which is agility, harnessing that expertise and knowledge in a much more agile way to collaborate more closely with customers, while also using that same knowledge and expertise to ensure operational excellence consistently across the operating environment, no matter where it is. And then how they're doing this in a very structured manner. We're going to be followed by Ashwani Dev, from Halliburton, who's going to start and end with the mandate of efficiency, 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 using it to lower costs or increase revenue. And a couple things that he'll touch on that are fascinating here is digital isn't enough. It's not enough to take the information and make it digital. It's applying it with context that makes the insight derive the value. And also something near and dear to my heart is the untapped knowledge that digital transformation enables us to capture and share, stuff that just sat siloed, something that wasn't part of an active knowledge base, or we didn't even consider it knowledge because we never thought it could be used. It's out there and you can now get to it and apply it to business and context. And then also another thing that he'll mention is the idea of IT-OT convergence. We talk about that from a technology or a technological process perspective, but he'll also mention about what happens when you bring the people together, because that's really what drives the technological adoption. So with that, thanks, enjoy the conference, and thanks to our sponsors as well.